Hey guys, welcome back to the Tim Moen Show. Your boy's been missing for a minute, huh? I've been just kind of, I don't know, doing my thing, just resisting getting anything productive done, resisting being good to myself, resisting providing you beautiful people with the content you want to hear from me. You know, why have I been doing that? Well, I have a go-to person whenever I am my own worst enemy, whenever I meet resistance, whenever I'm falling off the wagon of getting things done, being my best self. And her name is Lisa Freidt. I guess you could say you're kind of like my life coach in a way, but I don't pay you anything. And, and you probably don't, listen, well, thanks for coming on the show. This show was just thrown together at the last minute, kind of like, I don't know, the coaching that's been going on. It's weird. I reached out to Lisa like last week. She was on vacation. I said, hey, you want to do a podcast or something? I haven't done anything in a while. And I just Lisa, I'm talking about politics, talking about the same shit that I've always been talking about. I don't know. I just have a hard time getting the studio set up, getting here and saying the same bullshit I always say. Maybe I'm characterizing it wrong. I don't know. But I reached out to you and I'm like, Jesus, I got to move forward with something. I got to do something. I can't not do anything. I'm just getting depressed. I'm not, so I reached out to you and then I'm like, you know what? We should just do a podcast about the stuff I'm going through. Expose myself to the audience. This is like the antithesis, Lisa, of what you normally see on social media, on YouTube channels, on Instagram. It's me showing not my best side. You know what I mean? Showing that your boy isn't perfect. I know you guys thought I was perfect. You thought this guy's got his shit together, man. Look at this fucking alpha male over here just strutting through life. Everything, people bowing to his will, the universe arranging itself around his destiny. No, it hasn't been like that at all. I'm sorry I gave you guys that impression, but your boy's been struggling too. Anyways, Lisa, hop in here any minute if you want to add anything.
Okay. I love that you reached out to me on vacation and was like, you want to do a podcast? And I'm like, yes. And then you suggested a topic and I'm like, yes, except for that'll get me canceled. And
yeah,
I don't want to get canceled. Actually, I did come up with a podcast idea that was like called Cancel Me. And I thought that I could just bring all my ideas to the forefront and just see how fast I could get canceled in every episode. And then I chickened out. Anyway. I was so grateful to be here. Thanks for having me. And I think that you're the only person in the world where people see you as perfect and you're really not. Like,
yeah, I know, guys. I'm a fake. There you go. There you.
Me too.
Oh, no way.
I know, yeah. Right? You know what's really funny is before we jumped on this, I bought a book for a friend of mine. I'm like, oh, I better look through it to see, does it have the message? Like, I think it has good messaging, but let me just look through it. And there's this one image where a boy and a horse and a fox and a mole are looking at these two swans swimming in the water. And one of the characters says, like, man, they've got it perfect. Like, how is it that they have it so perfect and they're so put together? And the horse says they're paddling furiously beneath the water. And I think so many of us don't see the beneath the water shots, like right. Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition is definitely not showing that part.
Well, yeah, I mean, but in fairness to Sports Illustrated, they've embraced imperfection. I think Jordan Peterson got himself into some hot water recently. They had a plus size model on there, not looking exactly like the ideal female form that we've come to expect from Sports Illustrated, let's say. You're right. So there's all this stuff happening behind the scenes that never gets exposed. But I've always thought there's got to be a way to expose people to the struggles that people go through. The people that you see on Instagram that seem to have it together, they're paddling like crazy underneath. You never see the paddling. You never see how the sausage gets made. That might be the most important part of that you can learn from these people. Um, all right. So I'll tell you folks out there that the topic that I was going to talk with Lisa about, that was going to be my first podcast back jumping into it. And that was the Million March for Kids. And, yeah, I could see where you might be worried about being canceled. I am probably going to do a solo episode on that because there's important lessons there, and I think I can do it in a way where I'm not going to get canceled because I don't think I have a very controversial take on this. I just think it's an unusual take that most people don't have. That's maybe that's what I bring. Well, Lisa, look, you reached out to me, so I'm sitting around thinking, maybe I should get Lisa on my podcast here. We should schedule a day and get something done. And then you reach out to me with, I'm doing 75 hard starting tomorrow. Are you in? Are you going to do it? And my first initial gut reaction was just to be like, fuck you. No, I'm not in. There's no fucking way I'm in. And then I'm like, but why wouldn't I be in? And then I was like, I just bought like 3 bottles of wine and a bunch of chips. And I kind of want to, relax in the evenings and sip wine. And so anyone who doesn't know what 75 hard is, I'll tell you exactly what you have to do. It's a 75-day program designed to get you disciplined or whatever, right? So there's 2 45-minute workouts a day. They can be whatever you want, but they have to be workouts. You have to be exerting yourself and creating physiological change. You have to take a progress pick every day and look at all your all your fat rolls and your imperfections and
cottage cheese.
Yeah, cottage cheese. Take a hard look in that mirror. You have to do 10 pages of reading every day. Audiobooks do not count. You have to actually read words on a page, 10 pages. You have to drink a gallon of water a day. I got my half-gallon thing here. So I have to drink 2 of these bad boys, plus a little bit more, I think, because that's not quite a gallon, 2 of those. You have to follow a diet. It doesn't matter what diet, but you have to follow it, and you have to follow it strictly. There's no cheats and no alcohol. So you do all that every day for 75 days. If you miss one step, if you don't take a progress picture, if you only read 9 pages instead of 10, if you only do a 40-minute workout instead of a 45-minute workout, guess what? You failed. You have to start all over again on day 1 and try to get it. Now, I did this program, I think last year or the year before. I think I got to day 60 or 61 and I forgot to take a fucking progress picture. And I had to start again. And I'm like, screw it. I had restarted it like about 4 times by then because I always forgot to do something stupid. And I had to start again. But you know what? I was in pretty good shape by the end of it. So I knew what I was getting into. And I'm like, I'm just getting flooded with all these excuses, right? The wine I just bought, the chips. We got Thanksgiving dinner coming up. My daughter's Halloween party's coming up. Are you gonna tell me I can't get tipsy at that? Like maybe I could start it after I'm done these bottles of wine, right? And then maybe it'll be after Thanksgiving dinner with the family, so I can have that turtle cheesecake that I know my wife's gonna make, and it's gonna be so fucking good. And then maybe I could just wait. Then it's like, well, I might as well wait till after this Halloween party, right? Because I got to get tipsy. Your boy's got to be his in uninhibited self at this thing to get over his introversion. So I need some alcohol there. And then it'd be like, well, you know what? It's less than 75 days till Christmas and your boy's going to have some Christmas baking. I mean, so I like just one little excuse after another. And I realized as I was making these excuses in my brain and feeling all this resistance and discomfort about how this bitch is going to start 75 hard tomorrow. And if she can do it, fuck, I can. But at the same time, all this resistance in my brain, just going, all these excuses. And I realized like every single one of those things is what I experience almost on a daily basis to getting things that I know I want to get done, or I know I need to get done for my own integrity and my own sanity and feeling a sense of purpose. And I'm just, I'm done with it. And you know what, if Lisa's going to do it, I'm going to jump in and it's just something I have to do. And then you start with day one, and in that first 45-minute workout, and it's like, I haven't been in the gym in a long time. So this sucks, but we got through day one. So do you have any comments about that? I mean, that's resistance, right? That's you being your own worst enemy. Like, that text you sent me was like, just sent me into a spiral of shit. And I, Lisa, I had this inner dialogue for like an hour and a half before I finally said, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Okay. So I need you to know that you have only yourself to blame, and you may not remember this, but March, well, I actually think it was the last day of February, 2021, I had posted on social media. I was like, oh my gosh, ranching season's going to start April 1 and I'm fucking fat and out of shape. What am I going to do? Where can I get the most gains? And you're like, have you heard of 75 hard? Why don't you just do that for 30 days? Even though it wasn't for it was for the physical benefits, not necessarily the discipline.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I'm going to start that tomorrow. And I did 30 days of it, but it's because of you that I fucking did it or even knew what it was.
Oh,
and then I did it January 1st, 2022 successfully. And it changed so much of my life, which I've now backslid. Like, I'm not disciplined. I was probably laying on the couch drinking wine and eating chips when you texted me to do this podcast last week.
Right.
So,
right.
And as for the resistance, I was like, I don't want to be uncomfortable all by myself. Let's ask Tim.
Oh man. Well, what gave you the idea to start up 75 hard now?
Because like I was like, oh my goodness, there's like Thanksgiving, Halloween, there's what's called roundup or takeout on the ranch or on the grazing reserve, which is a 10-day fucking party where we bring in over 1,900 pairs of cattle, cow-calf pairs, and it's riding and whiskey and beer, breakfast beers. Like, it is just full on. It's the best time of the year. Seriously, it's like my Christmas. And then I'm like, so if I have to wait till that's done, and then I can just start January 1st. And I'm like, holy cow, though, we are a sloth and a slob right now. And I want to finish the year strong. So right before I texted you, I'd made the decision I was going to do it because, all planning and preparation and that kind of stuff. So I wanted that shift to happen in my life, and no sense in waiting one day or day one. Right.
Right. Right. Now, there's different philosophies or different strategies, I guess, around, I guess, personal growth and getting things done. And I've tried just about all of them. And, this 75 hard program, for example, is like an all or nothing thing, right? Like, it's unrelenting. Like, there's no moderation here. It's like you either do it or you don't do it, right? It's like the Yoda said, there is no try. There's either you do it or you don't do it. Like, it's pretty black or white. And that seems to even though it gives me the most resistance, it seems to work the best for me. Like, I can't do moderation. I can't, there's also something I've done with some success in the past as well, called minimal effective dose, which is basically, can I commit to doing the thing that is going to get me positive change? Just the bare minimum, right? Like, I know if I do 10 minutes in the gym or even 7 minutes in the gym, there's a program, there's a workout I can do in 7 minutes that will see positive physiological growth in the right direction. And can I commit to 7 minutes? Yes, I can. So I'll start getting in the habit of doing 7 minutes, and then it'll grow into 10 minutes. And then it'll actually grow into, like, pretty soon I'm doing hour-long workouts, because I'm gaining momentum and I'm enjoying it. But then something always happens where I miss something, or I don't do it one day, or I fall off the wagon, or, my Achilles heel is chips. Okay. If there's any chips around, I'll grab a chip, and then it'll be like, well, I might as well have a handful. Well, now that I've had a handful, I might as well finish this bag off. And hey, there's 2 other bags in the cupboard. I might as well finish those off. Oh shit, I'm not on this program anymore. I'm a fat slob. Like, I've ruined my program. So I might as well embrace the hedonic lifestyle and just, you know, go off the rails, and everything else seems to suffer. And it all starts with that one chip. What is that, Lisa? Why do you have any insight? How can I stop this from happening?
So I have a mentor that I pay big money to help me work through this. And she's like, you need like a baseline, like on your worst day, what can you do? And then a stretch goal. And you win every time that you end up in between there. And I'm like, oh, I love that. But I got to be really honest with you, Tim. I'm an all or nothing kind of person. And so it's a struggle. Like, it is building discipline in me to be able to find that moderation, but I haven't perfected it yet. Like, I am literally so similar to you that it's scary. Like, I'm like, chips, yes, give me the chips at Netflix. Like,
yeah. And I mean, the other, maybe it's a byproduct of personality. I don't know if you've ever done the Jordan Peterson Understand Yourself personality test, but you could probably guess whether you're very conscientious or not. And by conscientious, it's like diligent at the details. You're a details person that dots I's and crosses T's, and does work for the sake of doing work, and follows rules for the sake of following rules because it's the right thing to do, never questioning why the rules are there or anything. If that doesn't sound like you, you're probably a lot like me, and you need to rules, you follow them, but only if you understand the why behind them. And even
then, not necessarily.
And even then, not necessarily, right? And then it's like, you don't see the little details. You look at the big picture. That shuffling paperwork and doing all. So I wonder sometimes if it's a byproduct of my personality. Like, I scored 0 on that conscientious scale, which according to Jordan Peterson means I should never have any success in life. But yeah, I've had some moderate success in various domains. And I think a lot of it is because I outsource conscientious things that require conscientiousness to people that have that strength, while I take on what my strength is, openness, intellect, and the other aspects of the personality scale where I shine. I take on those tasks. So that seems to work for me. But at the end of the day, there has to be some conscientiousness. There has to be some discipline when it comes to achieving personal goals. When my health comes down to me. It's not a team effort here. It's up to me. My goals come down to me. So I have to have some level of conscientiousness. And so I'm the same as you. It's like, for some reason, like, I feel like I'm outsourcing my conscientiousness to 75 Hard. It's like, that's the program. I've determined the why. I know the why. It's because I need a change. I can't continue going this direction on this trend line. That's the why. I don't care if, in a few days in, I know exactly what my brain's going to say. Like, 45 minutes. Does it have to, like, I mean, what if it's 44 minutes and 55 seconds? Is that such a bad workout? Right. And then it'll be the slippery slope of eroding the rationale behind everything in their progress pick, like 10 pages. Well, what about if it's big print or small print? Like, my brain will start looking for shortcuts and undermining, and there's real logic to it. Like, I can rationalize why there's some stupid things in 75 Hard, and my brain will go there. And so, but I have to keep on it. The other thing that popped up for me too is that it's kind of like my theory of political change, right? Like, I have a very, what some would say, extreme or radical idea. I don't think it's that extreme. I think the status quo is fucking insane, but it is a radical departure. Like, it's way outside what they call the Overton window, the allowable discourse for politics. And my theory of political change, I always get criticized by people who say, what we need is incremental change, Tim. Let's incrementally change things. But my response to that is, you only get incremental change, incremental improvement in the right direction when you have a radical goal, a radical idea. If you don't have that, if your idea of incremental change, if you think taxation is theft like I do, incremental change would be decreasing the marginal income tax rate from like 23% to 21% or something like that. Well, how do I get the motivation to do that? Right. I don't. But yet if I'm going for 0% taxation, like abolish it altogether, maybe I'll get to 21%. Maybe there'll be enough political pressure and enough people saying, hey, yeah, this is a bad idea, that we can swing the odds. And so I kind of look at these audacious goals, Tony Robbins. I think, I watched that. I went to a Tony Robbins thing once. He talks about having these audacious goals, right? And really like ingraining them in your nervous system and creating, like your coach or your mentor said, that I read it in a book once. It's that what is it? Creative tension, right? So the further you pull on that band, the more tension that's in it. So you set this goal way out here, but if you only get a little bit of the way there, okay, that's still good. Just because you didn't get all the way there doesn't mean you didn't improve. So maybe part of it is like reframing our brains when we fall short, or we have a day where we fall off the wagon. And how should we reframe it though? How should we look at it?
So I learned something by a guy named Craig Groeschel last year when I was finished 75 hard and trying to figure out, like, with my personality, which is very limited consciousness, about like, how do I continue to do this when everybody tells you that doing 75 hard for life just isn't sustainable? And so it was to create a standard for yourself. And one of the rules, which is really simple, never miss 2 in a row. Because as soon as you miss 2 in a row, then that's that slippery slope, right? When you have 1 handful of chips, then you have 2. When you skip a workout, sure, you can recover from skipping a workout, but if you miss that second one, then you're missing the third. Like, and maybe 9 days later, you'll get back at it. If your goal, your drive, your why to make you cry, which is, right. I hate that saying, by the way, but and so I found that was really helpful, but then it wasn't, because I didn't have that big goal or that big driving force that kept me continuing. Like, so you have to be aware of what it is that you want, or what you want more of and what you want less of, and stay continuously in touch with that. And I think a lot of people, they don't know what they want. And maybe around January 1st, they start to figure it out or think about it or spend a few minutes doing that, but they don't continuously come back and do that. And I know if I do that less than once a month, then I'm just on the couch eating chips. Right.
Well, I like that having the big why, I've found, has been very important to me. That when I've gotten the most done, I've had a big why. And I think what I'm lacking right now is a big why. Like, what am I doing? What's my purpose here on earth? What do I want people to say about me in my eulogy or at my funeral? Right now, I'm not 100% sure I know. I used to have a pretty good idea of what I wanted, but you change over time, and you change. Like, maybe what I wanted 10 years ago isn't what I want today. It doesn't drive. It doesn't. Right. And so, and I think a lot of this too is coming from, like, I just turned the big 50. Your boy's half a century old. I'm almost halfway done life. And you notice how I reframe that there? Yeah. So what has my life meant to this point? What is it going to mean going forward? And, as a kid, you have these big ideas about what your life can be. And then the universe says, nah, that's not happening. And, you end up at a certain place that you maybe never imagined. How do you, where does that why come from? How do you work on the why? Do you have any tips?
So for me, because when people are like, oh, have a big why, I've always been like, fuck, like, we're going to take over the world, Pinky. Same thing we do every day. Like, but that's not really tangible. And people are like, what about for your kids? What? My kid's going to have her own fucking why. I don't need to be, I don't need to do that. I've really struggled with that. And so in order for me to get anything in place, I usually have to deal with the extreme opposite. So if I can't really tie into like why I want to do something, well, then I'm playing with like, what don't I want? What's the opposite of what I like? If I don't know what I want, what do I know for sure I don't fucking want? Right. Like, I don't want the government to increase my taxes ever.
Right.
Like, and from that point on, it starts to create some building blocks for you. Is it easy? No. Do you have to think about it? Yeah.
Right.
But
right. Well, and that reminds me of how I've heard Jordan Peterson describe his, what is it called again? Self-authoring program. And what he's done is, he basically gets people, and this might be a good exercise. I might do as part of my 75 hard, just implement it in there, because I'm looking for some kind of motivation or direction here, right? But basically, he gets people throughout different phases of their life, so to look back at their early years, and then through different stages, and then look into the future, but essentially get them to write down what heaven looks like to them and what hell looks like to them, right? And that's what he says. It's like, yeah, if you don't, the one thing that's more real than anything is pain. Like, that's real. And so you can just start writing down, how do you avoid pain, right? How do you avoid bad outcomes? What is definitely going to take you to hell? And be like, okay, so we can engineer those out of our lives. We can say, no, we don't want to do those. And that's a pretty damn good start to getting to where you want to go. Like, stay away from the things that are going to lead you to hell. And so, just you talking now made me think maybe what I need to do is do this self-authoring. It's a bit of work. It's, I think he said he had students do it for 90 minutes. It's a 90-minute exercise or something. And that 90-minute exercise, they did some research on it in different universities, and they found that it cut the dropout rate in one university from like 50% to like under 5%, and then it increased grades by a considerable margin and all that stuff. Because once people clearly articulated their why and crystallized it in their brain, everything they were working on started making sense to them as to why it was achieving their goal or whatever.
So I think that's great. I want to know more about it. Make sure you send me that. Okay. One of the things that you said, I think 3 times so far in the podcast, and it always makes my skin cringe, is motivation, like the word motivation. I'm always like, it's such bullshit. Like, we buy into this. We need motivation in some way. Chris is here. Tim and I are live. See you later. Okay, hey, go away.
Hey, welcome to the show. Hey, Chrissy. Where's he going? I have some questions for him.
Oh, good.
Okay, Chris. I know that you have worked on relationship stuff and marriage stuff in the past. Hold on a second here. Can you move your face over? You're right behind my logo. There we go. I was thinking about this the other day, and it was actually a manipulative way of trying to get more sex from my wife. It was, what would be great if 75 hard had in it sex every day, and that if she was going to help me achieve my goal, she would just have to have sex with me every day. But then I started thinking, wait a second, most people who have sex, even if they're not in the mood and they just say, okay, well, they go along with it, they never regret it, at least in a committed marriage. But then I started thinking, well, wait a sec, there's stuff that we could be doing as a couple every single day, Chris, that would probably improve our relationship. And I had a conversation with my wife. If I was to develop an app that was like 75 hard for relationships, what kinds of things would you recommend be in there? Obviously sex every day. That's super important. But then Chris, I was thinking about, well, what if she's on her period? But there's blowjobs and different things, right? Hand jobs. Would that be asking too much? I don't know. Anyways, other than sex, is there other stuff we could include in there that would help us?
You could narrow it down. All you have to do, the app, all it has to do is put 2 words on the screen, and it's yes, dear.
Yes, dear. Okay. So would there be a certain number of yes, dears a day?
Well, I don't know. Well, for a real answer on that, I think it's if you guys just make a conscious effort to do stuff together.
Like unload the dishwasher.
Right.
Oh, that's okay.
Right. Okay. I appreciate it. Maybe what I have to do is have Chris on the podcast and talk about relationship stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, sure. Yeah, no, but yeah, honestly, I think it's to develop intimacy, especially if it's kind of stretching apart, just I think spending some time together, quality time, but do things that you both like to do, and then it grows from there. Does that make sense?
No.
Yeah. Well, it makes some sense for sure. I was thinking about okay, what about what are some things you can connect over, right? Like you should probably as a couple have a talk about art, like where are you at, check in with each other, right? So where are you at in terms of energy? What's your emotional interstate? In what ways is your day kicking ass, and what ways does it suck? Like some kind of check-in like that, and maybe a check-in on like your goals as a couple, right? Like what is our overarching why as a couple? What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to save for a house? Are we trying to save to move somewhere? Are we trying to build up a nest egg for the kids? Whatever are we trying to save up for that RV? A check-in with like how are we doing at achieving that goal, right? Because a lot of times, for especially financial stuff, like a conflict between financial, let's say, philosophies, right? Usually there's one person that likes to spend more and one person that likes to save more in a relationship, and that creates tension. So I was just thinking about ways of creating conversations that get people on the same page and stuff like that.
Have you heard of the money talk or no? Have you ever heard of that concept?
I don't think so.
Okay. People, it goes back a long ways to how you're brought up, right? Mm-hmm. So I know if money is scarce, if you grow up on the poorer side of the fence or anything like that, and money is scarce, then there's always that fear of not having enough, right? And if the other person's coming from a place of abundance, and that there's always been money and everything else, and you could just spend money willy-nilly, freely kind of thing, then yeah, you're going to have obviously conflict there, because the scarce person's going to want to save and the other person's going to want to spend. And if you have an understanding, if you can actually get down into the roots and say, hey, how were you brought up or anything along those lines, then you'll have an understanding of why you might freak out over the purse that she just bought, or vice versa, or if you came home with that Corvette that you weren't supposed to, right. And it's also, but it's also this understanding, like if you come from scarcity and you have a little bit of a chance at abundance, then they just take full advantage of it and they spend willy-nilly all over the place, right? So that's one of the things, believe it or not, is if you have an understanding of how your spouse or your partner grew up, it gives you an understanding about how they view world things, or especially money or something like that. And honestly, if you can understand where she's coming from, then you can work with her, or you can just have more of an understanding of why those shoes showed up in the closet or something like that. And then it's not so bad.
Purses.
But she's very, see, I'm more
you're the spender, aren't you?
Yeah, I totally am. So, and she's a thrifty one. But
okay, we're not discussing our marriage here on this exact show.
Why not?
We can go do another one.
Okay. Anyways, I got to run. But
all right.
awesome to see you, Tim.
Thanks for jumping in. Nice to see you too.
What's the name of your podcast again?
It's called The Tim Moen Show. Very original.
Yeah. I was going to say, so creative.
Okay, well, I'm looking you up now. I'm going to be listening.
Okay, it used to be called Hard on Liberty, because I decided to go.
Well, you can work the sex aspect into that too. Pretty good, though.
I love it. Okay, we were talking about motivation.
Yes. Okay, so motivation is bullshit. Yeah, It's bullshit. We expect that there to be an external force always keeping us moving towards what our goal is.
Right.
You know what works better than that? Momentum. And momentum shows up for you every day that you show up for yourself, which I think is one of the reasons why I love 75 Hard. And I know that it works for me. And it also keeps me from quitting because I don't want to start back at day one. Right.
Right. Yes. And I like that too. I totally agree with you. Motivate. It's like, I've had my best luck at overcoming resistance, let's say, and gaining momentum by just embracing the fact that, that I'm lazy today, right? This is actually what I prefer to do today. This is what I'm embracing today is, watching TV and eating chips. And it doesn't feel good. And that makes me be like, is this really what I want to be embracing? Is this really where my true core values lie? And then it leads me to taking steps towards getting momentum. And what I'm realizing too, I'm reading this book, a new book by Scott Adams called Reframe Your Brain. And it's all about the frame. He talks about, he's got a hypnosis background. And so he talks about how to use frames, how you frame, how you look at a situation to determine outcomes and success, right? So for example, instead of framing sitting on the couch and eating TV as me being a fat slob and a piece of shit, maybe it'd be better to frame it as I have right now, my momentum is going in this direction. And this is what I'm choosing my momentum to be. And because then now all of a sudden that frame opens up the idea that, hey, this is a choice. And I'm not just passively sitting by, I'm actively choosing this momentum that I'm on right now. And maybe I can choose a different momentum, a different path. And so it's all about, like you say, reframing rather than trying to work up the energy and say, I got to do this again. Why am I doing this? Like that, the why comes back, but.
And I love that you're talking about it being an active choice. And we've talked about this before, like how people abdicate personal responsibility and they're just like, oh, somebody else will take care of that. Like I'll be forced into this position and therefore I'm not responsible for it. And there's nothing I can do to change it. So I'm a victim in this circumstance. Right. And because personal responsibility is so important to me and integrity is such a core value of mine, when I recognize and acknowledge that I'm choosing to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and eat fucking chips, and how long am I going to continue to choose this, it sparks change and gets the ball rolling in a different direction. Hence me texting you and being like, hey, Tim, let's do 75 Hard.
Yeah. Bitch. Sorry. No, you know what? It's, I feel great after just the first day. I'm definitely sore. I feel like my body's been doing something useful. I've been getting outside with my dog. Actually, that's one of the reasons I got this dog. Maybe that's another thing we could talk about is like engineering in success into your day. Right. So when my wife and I started looking at getting a dog, I realized like my wife wants a lap dog that she can cuddle with. I want a dog that I can have adventures with, but I also knew consciously that if I get a dog that has high energy and is high maintenance, that means I'm going to have to get off the couch and do shit. And I had some resistance to that, but I'm like, no, this is what I need. This dog is going to help me stay active. And, he gets me outside twice a day and usually in nature and stuff. So I feel a lot better, even though I'm like, fuck, he's poking at me and being a pain in the ass. And I don't feel like going outside right now, but I also know that the poking and the nagging and the behavior is only going to get worse if I don't do it. So I get off the couch begrudgingly and I take him outside and suddenly I'm feeling better. So what are some ways can you think of any ways that have worked for you or other people in terms of engineering in, things you want to do or getting things done that you think are important?
So these are like really mild examples. But for me, I have this thing, and it started with doing 75 hard, is that I would change laundry over before I started my workout, right? And so 45-minute dry cycle pretty much dries anything, right? So I'd finish my workout and then fold the load of laundry that was in the dryer and put that into the basket. I don't put it away. That's Chrissy's job, but or Delaney's. And it just made sure like at least one load of laundry got done every single day, which kept me on top of that, which made things so much easier, right?
Right.
And so I look at my day like, what is it that I can have working for me while I'm working on something else? And I get it. Not everybody is at home. Not everybody cares about a dishwasher or a washing machine or that kind of thing. But there's always something that you can have working for you while you're focusing on something else. So like I'll start the dishwasher, right? Before I go into my first meeting of the day. And my laundry's already started. There's different things. The crock pot or the Instapot. I know this sounds probably ridiculous, and I promise that I'm not a 1950s housewife, but it just allows those things to come off my to-do list as to done already.
Right.
Without energy.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah. I find that, 75 hard basically creates this structure in the day that is just non-negotiable. Like you have to do it. There's no half measures here. You either do it or you don't. And so I just have to do those things. And so everything else kind of falls in around those things I have to do. And so, like I'm finding between my workouts, I've got, my dog gets a walk first thing in the morning. I got to get up early. I got to get up at 5 to get all this stuff done. I need to do that 45-minute jog with my dog. That's my first workout. It gets his walk out of the way at the same time it gets my workout out of the way, so that there's 2 things done. And then I've got, I like to have my lift weights in a fasted state. I just feel better. I don't feel as heavy. I feel like I have more energy and that I can do more intense workout. So I usually do my gym workout right before I eat my first meal of the day, usually lunch. And so, so I know, okay, after this podcast, for example, I'm going straight to the gym and then I'm going to be having lunch. And so, but there's things that need to get done in order for me to have lunch at that time. I need to do some meal prep. So everything kind of works backwards, and you start getting into this routine of just automatically getting things done in a particular order. And it actually creates more free time for you. Like you're getting shit done. It's knocked off. You're not stressing about it and beating yourself up about it because you're making progress. And then you have all this time at the end of the day to spend doing leisure activities. Like I'll be basically done 75 hard by noon or 1 this afternoon. And then I'll have all this time and I'll have got knocked off a podcast. I'll have done some other stuff and feeling pretty good. We've got a comment here from one of our viewers, Justin Turdo, says, flush the turd. And couldn't agree more, Mr. Turdo. Flush that turd if you can. But you know what? Listen, your boy's going to be happy no matter what. I don't even care if, my happiness, Justin Turdo, is not contingent on who wins the next election. And this is one thing that I'm pretty good at is reframing my success and happiness as being under my complete ownership. And I see it at the fire station all the time. So for example, it sucks. Like working in healthcare is a toxic environment, especially when the state runs it, like the government runs it. And AHS has created a toxic work environment that I could go on for days about, but it should tell you something when, at one point, I think 60 or 70% of full-time paramedics in Edmonton were off on stress leave. It wasn't because of COVID or because of call volume or any of that. It was because of the bureaucracy of AHS that was ramped up during COVID, and it made 10 times worse than it normally was. When you're treating like an object of compliance, all this kind of thing. Like you could go on and on about all the ways that it sucks. And so what I do to reframe my brain, because your boy doesn't have a choice. He's got to work on that ambulance for AHS, basically. Or, I have to, like, I cashed in my retirement to try to flush the turd, as Justin Trudeau said. I ran for prime minister. And I tried to flush that turd. It didn't work. It was too big. It was just too clogged up. I needed some kind of a snake or cleaner, giant plunger, and I didn't have it. I failed. I'm sorry, Justin Trudeau, but I didn't flush the turd. Anyways, I got to work because I don't have another retirement income to work on. So now I can choose my state of mind. I can choose whether I'm happy or not. What do I do when I'm facing this toxic government imposed environment? Well, I reframe it and I have some fun with my partner. Say, okay, what kind of fun are we going to have tonight despite them? I say things like AHS can't kill me and they can't even crush my spirits because my happiness is mine. They don't own my fucking state of mind. And they can try to make me as unhappy as they can, and they will fucking fail. They can bend me over. And you know what? They can't rape me if I enjoy it. You know what I mean? And that's something I learned from a guy going into prison. Here's the secret. You can never get raped if you enjoy it. So you just got to enjoy it. You know what I mean? So it's all about the reframe. Maybe that went a little bit too far. I don't know. Justin Trudeau seems more interested in politics here. You should run as a conservative and pull them towards the libertarian side. Well, yeah. I mean, look, that temptation is always there, but the reality is that never seems to work. There are libertarians in Parliament right now, and they have to keep their yaps shut because it'll get them in trouble. I remember actually there was this conservative MP in Edmonton, and I'm pretty sure he's a libertarian, a secret libertarian though, because you have to be secret, you see. And he wore a shirt on an airplane that said taxation is theft. Now, someone caught him wearing that, took a picture and made a big deal about it on social media. And he disavowed his libertarianism. It was just a talking point, just a humorous talking point, just to raise discussion or whatever. Right. Now, I know that he's lying. He actually really believes that. He believes taxation is theft. He's a libertarian in Parliament. How's it going for him? He's having to say things that make him weak. He's having to disavow his libertarianism. And he has to do that if he wants to stay an elected official. You can't be a libertarian in a progressive world. You can't even be a so-called true conservative in a progressive world and expect to stay there. That's why Maxime Bernier has got very few votes, right? How's he going to pick up votes? He has to have a chance of winning if he wants conservatives to vote for him. And the only way he has a chance of winning is if he's center left, right? He can't challenge. He can't be saying the things he's saying and expect to have a pragmatic shot of winning. So, I mean, if I thought that was a viable option, if I thought that you could, but the problem is, in order to get to that spot, you have to violate the very principles you stand for. And then that immediately takes away any power you have at creating change. So I'm more about change from the outside. Politicians follow the crowd. They don't, and so what needs to happen is we need to create a cultural change. It's the same with AHS, right? One of the things that's going on right now in Alberta is ambulance contract negotiations. And right now, the philosophy of AHS EMS is it's a borderless system. In other words, all ambulances are provincial assets, can be moved anywhere. And so what we end up happening is all the suburban and rural ambulances get sucked into the city where all the calls are and where all the staff are burnt out from the bureaucracy and they're short staffed. And we end up doing calls in Edmonton all night. So our communities are empty. We're not serving our communities, and we're dealing with one drug addicted zombie after another, dealing with another failed progressive policy. And so now what do we do to change this? Our contracts are up. Our municipalities would like power back, but AHS is never going to give them power back, because AHS wants control. That they're a bureaucracy, just like any organization. They want to expand and grow, like any corporation or small business. You want to expand and grow. AHS is no different. So then what it needs is marching orders from Daniel Smith, from our premier, or from the Minister of Health, that says, hey, we're getting rid of this borderless philosophy. We're decentralizing. Well, they're not doing that. Why aren't they doing that? Well, because they know they'd be crucified. The risk is so damn high. They would be crucified by the NDP. Albertans want socialized healthcare. Canadians want socialized medicine. Even conservatives do. And so if they do anything that threatens that in the least, they're out on their ass. So they're very careful, even though they believe in the same thing we do, decentralized, they can't. So what needs to happen for us to get decentralized ambulances? The only thing that will work here to get Daniel Smith to issue orders to AHS is a cultural change in Alberta. We need a huge movement of people. And we saw this, by the way, with the vaccine mandates. What did we do? We created a movement. I created an organization called Fight for the Frontline. We joined up with other organizations. We did rallies. We did media. We talked to people. We changed their mind. We got them to see that these vaccine mandates were only harming communities and healthcare. They weren't helping them. And then when we approached the health minister, we cleared the path. We had cleared the path for him, and we'd done it all from the outside. Up until that point, he wasn't doing anything. As soon as we cleared the path and created a parade going in the direction we wanted, he was happy to step in front of it. And so the most power and the most ability to change that can happen actually comes from the outside the system, not from inside the system. And really, it starts with what Lisa and I are talking about, what we should probably get back to right here, which is the man in the mirror, because that's who I can change the most. And then my sphere of influence can go out from there. And eventually, when you've created enough influence and created enough change from, you can affect politics. But to throw away all your principles, do all the things that violate your integrity to get that spot, you might as well have lopped off your own dick. You become, anyway, I was going to say something.
And then how would you have sex with your wife every day?
Well, exactly.
So
should I move to Alberta or keep trying to change minds in BC? Well, I mean, look, it depends where you're at in BC, I guess. Most of BC is similar to Alberta. It's just the lower mainland, like the beautiful spots in BC are where the progressives have really kind of taken hold and done their thing. But I don't know. Look, there's problems everywhere, right? Like Alberta is not problem free. We have our two main parties are the UCP and the NDP. The NDP are absolutely horrible, but yet they got elected in here not too long ago,
2015.
Yeah, and they're very popular, and in the Edmonton is an NDP stronghold too. So there's I don't know. I've kind of shifted away from trying to imagine that I can change the direction that government is headed, and started to think more about what are ways I can create more resilience and maybe even profit from the coming apocalypse. It's all about anti-fragility, right? Let's assume things are never going to get better. What are the things that we can do to adapt to that, to adjust to that? And things you can do are make sure you're physically and mentally strong. I think that's the most important thing. You can ensure you can be of incredible value to other people, because no matter what economy you're in, if you provide value to other people, your ability to survive and flourish has dramatically increased, right? And so if all of the infrastructure around us fails and our monetary system fails, and you're going to have to find some way to get food, to get gas, to get shelter. And the best way to do that is to be able to provide services to the people that can give you those things. or do those things
or
yourself.
have a 2,500 acre cattle ranch. Like
Yeah.
that's also helpful.
Or have a friend like Lisa who, you know, is going to look after you in the apocalypse and say, come to my cattle ranch. We got good zombie protection.
But we might have to work on our shoot and then aim strategy a little bit there if we're protecting ourselves from the apocalypse.
Justin asks, are you black pilled? Are you black pilled? I don't think so. I don't know, Lisa, if you're familiar with all the different pills. Okay. So there's, you remember, the Matrix, right? There's the red pill and the blue pill. The blue pill is you accept the status quo and you continue on in ignorant bliss. The red pill is you go down the fucking rabbit hole. Your eyes are open to reality and it's going to be very uncomfortable for you, right? But you're going to see what reality is. Which one do you choose? The red pill or blue pill? So that's where the red pill comes from. So people who are red pilled are people who see through the propaganda, who are you know, aware of the bullshit and the narrative that's constructed around them, this reality. The black pill are people that are red pilled, but are very pessimistic about where things are going to go. They see there as being not really any hope in the future. And then there's white pilled. Pilled people are red pilled people who are optimistic, who say, look, it's been done before. For example, you know, the Soviet Union was under, you know, communist rule forever. And then all of a sudden, just like that, because of kind of a sequence of fortuitous, serendipitous events, suddenly they're out from under that yoke and communism has been banished and life is better for the people. That is, that's the white pill. It's so, okay. So black pilled, I don't think I'm black pilled. But I'm not really any pilled. I'm not optimistic or pessimistic. I prepare for the worst and hope for the best. You know, I think it's reasonable. And I guess my point is it black pilled or white pilled, Justin? If I think that there's a good chance things as we know them, the status quo, devolves, that there's more chaos in store in our future, that our dollar is going to get worse, that institutions are going to start to crumble. I don't know that that's necessarily a black pill. That's certainly going to create some discomfort, some pain and anguish for some people. But what I'm saying is that even if that's the case, you know, there's opportunities on the other side for those of us that are aware of what's coming, you know, and life is going to be good no matter what. And I think that's an optimistic view of my own life and my family's life and the people I care about, even though I don't have a lot of hope for the tax farm we call Canada. I don't know that it's going to ever look the same or be as nice as we sentimentally remember it, or that we were taught it was in public schools.
But will there still be maple syrup?
I think there might be, yes, if forest fires haven't taken out all the maple trees. Justin says 5 years ago, only libertarians were talking about freedom. Now there's millions of anti-authoritarians in Canada. Yeah, I agree. I think that is a sign of hope, you know, because again, I think politics largely is informed by culture. Now, politics also informs culture in a negative way. You know, it creates a culture that sees everything in the state and nothing outside the state, right? And this is and we see this even with people who talk about freedom. They're only halfway there. They're half right? Like a lot of the populists we see. I'm going to do a podcast on this I think in the near future. But even at this Million March for Kids, you know, parents were marching against some horrific ideology being taught in school. You know, the idea that if you're white, you are forever the oppressor, and there's never enough money or bowing you can do to assuage your shame and culpability in being white and being part of the oppressor class. And just like on the other side, you have no agency. You can never achieve success and happiness because of the external world and how they view you. There's nothing you can do, and it will be like removing agency. So parents are understandably upset about this kind of ideology, about keeping secrets. And what do? Do they march to ban public education? No, they march to reform it, right? So because they want freedom, educational freedom for their kids, but they want it done in a government-run school. You see where
so that they don't have the discomfort of having to school their children themselves.
Right. And I see this a lot in the so-called patriot movement, or the freedom fighters, or whatever. That all their solutions seem to be a government policy that protects their interests, right? So they're worried about immigrants stealing their jobs or running up housing prices and stuff like that. Well, we need the government to solve that problem. They're worried about education or a certain type of culture or whatever. Well, we need a government policy to solve that problem. They don't like the vaccine, so therefore it needs to be banned. We need government to ban it, right? And you see what the problem is here. They continue to ask the very entity that creates all the evil and all these problems to solve the problem for them. And so they're halfway there. They recognize some evil in the world. They recognize that they're ruling. Or here's the other problem. They focus on the globalists, right? And the gender ideologues. Well, these people are completely toothless. Like Klaus Schwab, as dastardly as his plans are and as horrific as his book, The Great Reset, is, he's just a guy that's saying words. Like, he has no authority. He doesn't have guns. He doesn't have an army. Who has the guns and the army? Our government. What do? They take half our shit. They tell us we can't have lawn darts. They tell us we can't even have baby walkers. These motherfuckers are the ones that are pointing the guns at us and taking all our shit. Yeah, I don't want them doing what Klaus Schwab said, but hey, Klaus Schwab ain't the problem. It's our own goddamn government that's the problem. And these people, meanwhile, are looking at the globalists. Look at what Soros is doing. Look at what Schwab is. Look at the Rockefeller. Look at all. Oh, I think it was Jewish space laborers that created these fires in Hawaii. We need to get to the bottom of this. If we can just expose these corrupt people, then finally we'll have a government of the people, for the people, by the people, that's virtuous. No, you won't. Government is a fucking it can't be virtuous. Anyways. I went off there for a second, Lisa. I'm feeling the spirit up in me. I'm feeling the spirit come up on me here. I know we're supposed to be talking about
hallelujah.
Yeah. Gender ideology is wrong. It's not independent from sex. Okay, we should stop it from mental illness. Yeah, I don't disagree. But how do you want to solve this problem? And the populist right would say we need a government program to stop this, right? And that's where I say, that this is the problem. I was actually going to write an article, Justin, called Right-Wing Populists Are Just Conservatives Driving the Speed Limit. It's a play on, Lisa, there's this famous commentator who talks about how conservatism is just progressivism driving the speed limit, because conservatives continually plant the seeds of their own demise, right? Like they're all worried about marriage and family, so we need the government to protect it. Government needs to be involved in marriage. Government issues marriage license and blah, 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 blah. And now we have a destruction of the family and marriage because the government's in charge of that shit. And so, they have they notice what I agree with them about what's important and what's worth preserving and what's right and what's moral. And then the prescription is like, they're their own worst enemy. It's like the meme of the person sticking the stick in their front wheel and flipping over the handlebars, and that's conservatives all the time. And the alt-right ain't much different, because they're just conservatives driving the speed limit, right? They're like, like I saw this. I listened to this podcast. Brian Lilly interviewed this school headmistress in the States, and it's wonderful because there's no. Everyone wears a school uniform. All the desks are regimented in rows pointed towards the teacher. There's no calls are completely silent. There's no talking in hallways. They march single file to the next class and sit down. And this is wonderful. And these kids all have great marks, and their parents report improvements and all these kinds of things. Well, this is the problem with public school to begin with, is that desks are all oriented towards an authority figure, that children are taught to defer to authority, that authority ought to be in charge of your life, that experts, what the experts determine you ought to learn, you ought to learn. So they're great at deferring to authority. And so the conservatives are applauding that. This is what we need in Canada. We need this kind of education. Hey, guy, that's how public education started. It was to create a class of dumbed down military men, a class of dumbed down corporatists that just pull levers and fucking drink beer and watch TV and do what the government says and hand over their milk, their harvest tax to the tax farmers. And, it washes the human spirit. But no, the problem is gender ideology. That if we just get rid of that and go back to just regular brainwashing, things would be so much better. And that's a conservative answer. That's a populist answer. They create these government. Hey, do you think the government is ever going to do something? Do you think they're ever going to do anything to sacrifice their own self-interest? Do you think they're going to do something to make government smaller? Do you think they're going to teach your kids stuff that undermines their authority or that limits them? No, they're never going to do that. Why would they ever do that? They would never do that. So naive. You can tell that conservatives were educated in public schools. Anyways, I go. Lisa looks like she's about to run. Sorry, Lisa.
No, I'm here for it. I'm loving every minute of it.
I'm feeling the podcast juices start to flow again. I'm starting to.
I can tell. We could go back to like minute 47 when it really started to click.
It was, you know what it was? It was when Justin Trudeau entered the conversation. Trudeau, I don't want to flush
you. Saved the day.
You saved the day. All right, let's bring it. Let's bring it home. Let's bring it full cycle, Lisa. What are the lessons we've learned from this?
Well, that the government is bad. That's what I've learned. No, sure. I've known that all along, but
yeah.
I think for me, the biggest thing that our discussion reiterated is that personal responsibility is super important and not very fucking popular.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, 75 hard, it's uncomfortable. We don't want to do it, but it can create great change for us if we're willing to do that and put ourselves in a position like that.
Hold that thought. I want to go back to this point you said about personal responsibility being very hard. And I want to play you something. Let's see if I can make this happen here. That I think perfectly encapsulates that. Let's see. Share screen. Yes. Okay. So this is someone at the Million March for Kids. All right. And this is what stood out for me. I'm just going to play this.
We were not there at 3 o'clock in the morning when we were changing their diapers. What we believe is right or wrong. What we're saying, stay out of our children's lives. We're telling you right now that we come in peace. I speak for every single parent out here. We will die for our children, and we will not let you take them from us.
All right. Anyways, so we would die for our children. But hey, Ahmed, would you homeschool your kids? Would you take them out of school? Would you go down to a single car, downsize your life, and unschool your kids? Would you take personal responsibility for your fucking kids? Or are you going to hand them over to wolves and demand that the wolves become vegan, Ahmed? You think that's a good parenting strategy? Demanding that the wolves become vegan because they're the problem, not you handing them over to the wolves. Anyways, sorry.
Oh, I love that so much. If only this were the only time in history where people were refused to take personal responsibility. If this were the only example on the planet right now.
Well, exactly right. But I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about here, right? The right likes to talk about personal responsibility and then attend rallies and say shit like that. We would die for our kids. You have no right, as you hand your kids over to this person who you're delegating, custodial caretaking to. I'm abdicating my right as a parent to give to you. You have no right to do that. I just handed them to you. You can't come into our schools. Hey, dude, are you in school teaching these kids? No, you're inviting them into the schools. Oh my God. Anyways. Feels good to rant. Anyways, okay. So personal responsibility was one lesson. What was the next one, Lisa? You were talking about before I rudely interrupted you with that rant.
Now I'm almost like completely blank from all that, because I was just so into your political rants that I was like cheering you on, that I'm like, what else did we talk about today? Chips are bad.
Okay. Yeah.
And delicious.
Well, but I think that is probably one of the most important things to take out today is personal responsibility. And what does that look like? What does personal responsibility look like? Listen, buddy. He's bugging me. He wants to go for a walk.
He's like, hello. So
high maintenance stuff.
One of the things that you reminded me of or articulated well during this podcast was the choice. Like, you have the choice when you reframe it, that you're choosing to sit on the couch and eat chips, or you're choosing to go to work every day in a situation that may or may not be toxic, and choosing whether or not you're going to allow that to steal your joy or zest for life or drive towards doing anything outside of the work hours, right? And I think people need to focus on that. If we could remember that we always have a choice, and personal responsibility is sexy, I think that there could be a lot of change that at least could happen internally.
Absolutely.
And then ripple out to society.
Right. Yes. And are you going to get 75 hard done today?
Yeah, I'm almost done. Well, I have one more workout to do, and to finish drinking some more water, and I guess not eating chips and drinking wine on the couch later.
Well, congrats on your choices, and thanks a lot for pulling me into this. I don't mean that sarcastically. I'm serious. Thanks so much.
Hey, talk to me in like 74 days. You'll be so you might have a slightly different tone.
Right. Well, no, I'm feeling better already. I'm feeling great. My rants are coming back. My blood's pumping. My energy's coming. My body's feeling better. We just started this tomorrow. And now the problem is, Lisa, the resistance is coming. I know this, and I need to prepare for it, and I need a strategy for it.
So you already know, though, what the resistance is. At the beginning of the show, you listed off 5 things that are going to be in the way, right? So now what's really easy is for you to pre-decide what you're going to do when that shows up. Right. Decide now how you're going to respond.
Great. More homework to do. I'd rather eat chips. Awesome. Listen, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me. We've been chatting for over an hour, and that's long as I usually go. So thanks for coming out. I'm going to go to the gym right now, and we're going to kick an ass. Well, let's check in with each other and the audience here in a couple weeks and see how things are going and see how we're overcoming the resistance. If we are, maybe we'll learn that we failed or we fell off the wagon. How did we deal with that? Because it's all part of growing and part of life. We're not going to be perfect. We might not go 75 hard. We might only go a day and a half hard. We'll see how this ends.
56 flaccid. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, that's my normal operating procedures is 56 flaccid. I like that. That might be and I also want to talk to you. Maybe we should do this in another episode, but I was serious about what I was talking about Chris. I had this idea about, this personal growth, but there's also couples and relationship growth. What would be a great product to help couples grow closer together, more intimate, that sort of thing. So something to think about. I want you to ruminate on that while you're on the treadmill or while you're under a 300-pound bench and see what you think.
Oh my goodness, that gave me an idea of another show about women powerlifters, but we will do that another day.
I'm a woman powerlifter. Did you know that? No.
I actually can tell.
Yeah.
No. Well, this is great. This is great. And I look forward to what our updates are. And yeah, maybe we will be disclosing what flavor of chips were our downfall.
Yeah. Oh man. Go on for that. All right. Guys, we're ending it there. Hey, thank you to Justin Turdo for getting my juices flowing. Way to go, Lisa. He says, hey, let's end it on that note. Way to go, Lisa.